Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi, I'm Liz Hyman, and this is the Sales SOS podcast. And I have your crew here to save you from your sales nightmares. And we are going to talk now. We've been talking about CRMs and what they do. One of the things that we learn as we help companies with their CRMs is that they hadn't really thought through what they need the CRM to do before they started setting it up. So what I want to talk about now with you guys is what reports should we be looking for? How should we be, what are the important things we need to think about who's using it and how they're using it? Let's dive into some specifics about things to think about as you're planning and building or fixing your CRM today. So I don't know, one of my first thoughts is, the sales process part, right? That sales process part is really important. Maybe I'll throw it out to the team maybe we start there, or if you want to start somewhere else, that's okay too. What do we need to think about before we start? And Bryn has so many ideas. She loves to start.
Well, I mean, so I think, and this is going to sound a little old-fashioned, but I still think it's good, is I think we have to start with SMART goals. I think we have to look at, what exactly do we want to do? So what specifically do we want to do? How are we going to measure it? Like maybe what's the timeline around that? There's process around that. So I think almost starting with, here are our SMART goals that we want to achieve. And then we can start thinking about how do we want to measure and track that in our CRM.
Yeah, I would build on that and just say, like, what does success look like? And then how do you plan on getting there? And what measures do you have in place to determine whether or not you're making progress? And if you can't answer those questions inside your organization, well, one, you've not earned the right to lead your organization. Go find somebody and bring them in to help you with that. If you have a team of people and you're not able to share this information, or at least have a conversation around what those things are, get better as a leader. But start first with, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What's our mission? And then how do we organize around it? And how do we know that we're actually making progress toward it? Then you can build from there, because there's so much stuff you can put into these systems. And ultimately what you'll end up doing is creating waste, or some of the other things that were talked about in the last discussion, which is you create all these barriers where people are asked to put extra information that is meaningless. And what they do is they figure ways to work around the system. That's what I used to do. And now you've got crap information in the system that you're reporting on. Begin with the end in mind, which is, Covey thing.
Can I just really quickly on that? So I think with those two ideas, it's really making sure that the KPIs you're choosing are ones that we can act on. Like, just put in KPIs that if we look at that key performance indicator, I can do something about it. Sometimes we're measuring things that are, just for data, but not for improvement. So
if you're not achieving your goals and you have multiple KPIs, start reducing your KPIs.
Yeah. And I think this is a great conversation for another day, because I think we have so much trouble with KPIs. So let's put this on the calendar for a few months out, and let's really dig into this KPI issue. Chris, I know you're managing a team and you're using the CRM. What do you wish they had thought about when they put your CRM together?
Well, I did not, but I have in the past. I think the thing you have to really understand is who is it meant for, right? The daily users of this are going to be your salespeople, right? And not that there's not a whole lot of other people that may have access to some of this information, But the people that you're really dependent upon getting this stuff as close to accurate are your sellers. And if you don't have those sellers in mind when you're building it, you're gonna end up serving the wrong audience. And if you're talking about doing it from the front end, from a marketing perspective, or from a customer success or implementation perspective, it's the same thing. In those pieces of the solution, understand what it is that you need from them to be accurate, and then build it out for that audience. Then you'll get a lot higher quality data. It'll be more accurate more of the time, and you're going to be able to hopefully have a much higher level of reliance on what that information looks like. If we overcomplicate things, which I know is going to be our next topic, all the time. And I think it's usually because you have a misalignment between what you really are trying to do, and you're either solving for a one-off problem or something along those lines, which is not the place to do it.
John, what are your thoughts on this?
My thought is kind of similar to what was been said. CRM is not a strategy. It executes your strategy. So you have to know what that is. So to get into the really deep down specifics, Bren, in the last episode, you talked about being able to track activities, who's doing those activities, those due dates of activities. And to everybody's point, if these are your critical sales motions that people have to execute in order to land a deal, that's what you need to set up in your CRM. Because one of the things that, we all know, right? If you measure it, it will happen. And so that's what you want to do with your CRM. These critical activities, you got to measure that. You got to measure it, and then it will happen. Otherwise, to what we talked about, why are you collecting all of this data? What is all of this data for?
Yeah, so let's dig in a little bit more, because I think, go ahead, Renee. Yeah.
I think this is a really important point, and I haven't heard anybody say it yet. I think you all just skipped the step, and I want to make sure that the people who really haven't done this before hear this part, which is the first thing you got to do is figure out what kind of customer journey you're trying to build, right? Like, you have to know what is the journey that we expect to take people through, and then you have to everyone else's point, figure out the process that you want and that you can stand up, that you can support, and how to get those two things together, right? So we have to think of the customer and what we're putting them through, and is this the right step in the state that we want that journey in, and then can we make it easy through process for the people to support that journey along the way, internally and externally.
Okay, so process. So let's dig into that for a second. So we've got our marketing process, and our marketing process starts with different engagements, and then we start with filling out forms and asking for meetings, and right. So there's a process. There's a journey they want to take, and that we want to take them on, and we need to map that journey and have the right next actions happen in order to get that into the right person's hands, a right salesperson's hand, for that deal to turn into something that is business. So recognizing that part of the journey, then the next thing is when we're thinking about that sales process where we have the different stages, what does that really look like? Often we have in our head a journey or a sales process that doesn't necessarily match the buyer journey. So as we're building out that part of it, we really need to think through, how do buyers buy? And how do we map that along these stages so that they actually represent where the buyer is in their journey, which is way more important than where we are in our seller journey. So that's one of the kinds of things that we want to do. So let's talk a little bit about reports. So if you want to see certain information, you have to set it up in the CRM the right way. So everybody wants to see the funnel. Okay, what does the funnel look like? What does the funnel look like? But then I look at it and I'm like, okay, do you have that set up so you see what you need to see? Do you need to see it by product? Do you need to see it by industry? Do you need to see it by number? Do you need to see it by dollar amount? Like, what matters in your company when you're looking at that data? What other things, you guys, should we be thinking about reporting, and how we want to set up the CRM so that the reporting delivers what we want? Yeah, Brent.
So you started off with sales pipeline for sure. Sales forecast we touched on. but also sales performance, right? We can see how different salespeople are progressing, what their sales cycle timeline looks like, if they are moving, from stage to stage and how quickly. Also, I think lead source effectiveness, right? So we've got leads that are coming in. Are they the right leads? Are they moving through the journey, or where are they getting stopped so we can improve that? And one of the things I love is customer acquisition cost, or lifetime value of the customer. So that's something that we're looking at currently because we have a membership, right? And so when we're looking at improving this, and we looked and we're like, wow, the lifetime of a client for us is between 8 and 9 months. We're like, oh, new clients, new, but how do we get that from 8 or 9 months to 14 or 15 months, especially if you're in a monthly recurring revenue? And so it took us a long time to figure out what our customer acquisition cost was and what our lifetime value was. And now I'm recognizing and our CRM did not really do that for us. So Stripe did, right? So we had to do a lot of work to figure that out. So I think that's a real value add that a CRM can do for us.
I think one other thing to me that's really important, especially in terms of reporting, is why did things close loss? What was the reason?
Yeah.
I mean, we always report on close won, which is great, but we also need to know why things close loss, because otherwise there's no way to fix it, right? There's no way to improve those numbers. So you have to be able to set up your CRM in such a way that when some stuff is marked as closed loss, you need to notate what happened.
Yeah, and I think it's really important knowing what happened and knowing that it's not always wrong. Like, it's okay to qualify out, but we want to see how much time do we waste before we qualify out? Do we need to qualify them out earlier? Do we need to get better qualified leads to start with? Like, there's all kinds of stories in there about when we lose business and why we lose business. And I think you're wrong, John. I'm going to say right now, I think actually people talk more about why they lost it than why they won it, which is really important. Like, why did you win when you won? And most people don't know that it just was a fluke. What other things should we be measuring? Yeah, Renee.
Liz, I'll share it from the point of view of, and you and I have worked with clients together where this is really common. So I think this is the big question to start thinking about is, how do you want to be able to segment this data, right? So do you want to know, here's some just instances, that just some different fields that might be important to help you segment. Do you need to know how many employees there are in a company in order to know what you need to know about getting more customers or getting more leads or serving them better, right? Or do you need to know their revenue? Or do you need to know titles? That's something that's missing in a lot of them, right? So like, if you need to make a change to a company and that information, say you make a change in your product and you need to change terms or something like that, and you need to get to the owner of the company to sign something, you might have 10 people on there and not know who that is, right? So where you need to segment information in your reporting are some of the fields that you need to make sure get input from the beginning, right? So if your marketing team is going to need to look at conversions and see what's performing better to help you determine what your best target market is, then you're going to want to segment on some of those things, right? If you need to know how your service team needs to, Bryn brought up retention, who's staying longer, how do we see where our sweet spot is in retention? What are the people that do go from 9 months to 14 months? How you think you want to segment it is really important for the data that you're putting in to make sure that you get it there, because you can't run those reports until you have that data. So,
yeah, John.
I think one other thing that I think Mike and you all will probably I'd be curious to know what you guys think as well, because there's so much that does happen, and I know Renee, I know you knew this very well, is that companies do A/B testing, and if you don't set up your CRM to be able to track what is A and what is B, you're never going to know what actually made the difference. So I'm very curious, Mike and Renee, how do you set up CRMs to be able to track A versus B as you're doing all of these kinds of testing in your sales processes?
That's more of a Renee question, because I get into like the marketing ops type stuff, and it is that stuff like the absolute plague, because I don't know the technical ins and outs of it. So I defer to Renee.
So, well, the reason why I say it's kind of goes back to that same question that I said about what do you want to be able to run segmentation by? Like, how did something perform versus the other, right? I will tell you, most of the companies that I work with, we would manage that via the marketing automation. In other words, it would go into the CRM in one way versus into the CRM another way before it even gets there, into the sales view, right? And it's going to be if it's all in one. So like if you're using HubSpot for marketing, sales, and service, then that would be in the automation in the background based on like form completion or clicking through on a UTM code or something like that. Like it'll automatically get appended in. And then you segment that list based on these people chose this, and that's what you give to sales. Like these people chose this one, we find them to perform better, and that's what you give to sales. So marketing is actually going to touch a lot more tech than just about anybody else in the company. And so they really need to know they're going to be managing a lot of different platforms, and they have to know how you want to run those reports in the CRM, because they're more than likely, in most companies, more than 75% of your leads are going to come in from something marketing has set up first, right? And so they have to get all of that data and all those different pieces of tech to speak to your CRM correctly, or if it's all in one, like with a HubSpot or Salesforce, to make sure it's all moving through the system properly too.
And then having the lead source follow the contact, the company, and the opportunity. So that original lead source should never go away. And those secondary lead sources need to follow all the way into the opportunity, and they often don't. So making sure, if you want to know that, then it's in the code that is the lead source. You know, a couple of other things that I ask people, and they can't answer because their CRM doesn't tell them. What percentage of your business is new versus existing clients? Which buyers are the first ones that typically reach out to you? Which category of buyers? You know, I'll ask them which product. They usually know which product is they sell the most of, but which product did you start with? Like, there's a lot of things that we want to make sure that we're tracking in our CRMs to enable us to make decisions in the future. So when I'm making decisions about how much more of something I want to buy or sell, should we be producing more of this? Should we get the sales team to focus on this? The data in our CRM should help us answer those questions. But because we don't track it, because we're not forward thinking about what am I going to need? What information will I need in the future? We don't set up our CRMs to give us the data that we need. Yeah, Brent.
So and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, but when you connect your CRM to Sales Navigator and you have a robust Sales Navigator program inside of a company, you can now, when you're doing your research, and you can see who in my company is connected to people in this company. You can see your social proximity to your buyers between your CRM and LinkedIn, not just with your connections. And you can see immediately, if you're in LinkedIn, if that person is in your CRM or if that account is in your CRM. So you can click through and get this. So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the power of connecting Sales Navigator.
Well, what you're talking about, Brent, is enriching data with other tools, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, so some of that's going to come from marketing, right? Whatever those tools are. Some of that's going to be some sales enablement type tools. Some of that will be, I think LinkedIn Navigator would probably fall into that sales enablement side, right? And then you have like just data enrichment. So you could add in a Zoom info or purchase Hoovers or things like that, where you're enriching so that you can possibly take some of that lift off of salespeople to have to sit there and type in all these different things that we all need to run the company better. You can add those in through data enrichment.
Mike, what were you going to say?
Yeah. So as leaders, I think one of the key questions that we want to ask, and this comes from the role reflective model, and I use it when building CRMs inside organizations and adjusting the CRMs and fine tuning them. Number one, what? So what's the definition of the data or the piece of information or the field or the object or whatever it is that we're putting in? What's our definition? Let's get aligned there. So what?
I love that.
Like, why does it matter? Like, what are we actually going to do with this thing? Now what? What decisions will we actually make? What will we do next? And if we can't answer what, so what, now what, it doesn't deserve a spot in the CRM. I won't put it in there. And when we talked about some of the data at the front end, the two biggest data points for me are pipe, and I'm a sales guy and a success guy, generate revenue. Pipeline created, pipeline developed. Pipeline created is a view of the future. Pipeline developed is a view of how things are moving through the process. And remember that sales generated are a lagging indicator. Sales hadn't in the past. All of these things, all these stages, and I can't wait till we talk about process at some point in the future, Liz, because I know we're all going to go back and forth on this stuff. These stages should be past tense because something already happened, right?
Yeah, we'll never agree on that, Mike.
We will not. But I threw it in now just to get everybody on my side. So
that's going to be the
role
debate.
reflective model. What, so what, now what? Apply it and evaluate some of the data that you've got in your system. And you might find out, hey, I'm actually asking my team to do too much. And my team is actually working for the technology rather than the technology working for my team. And if that's happening inside your organization, you're a bad leader.
So wait, I'm going to ask you a quick question. You have what, so what, now what? What about what's next?
That's the
now what? Yeah. What?
Now what? Okay.
So what? Now what?
So
What's
two are in the past. One is what we're working toward.
Yeah, it's making a decision. So what, like definition of what it is. Mm-hmm. So what, why does it matter? Mm-hmm. Now what are we actually going to do with it? Like you might have a lot of stuff that matters, but you're not going to do anything with it. Well, you can decide, do you want to turn something on to start collecting a lot of data? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to wait and start collecting that data at some point in the future? So what, now what, and it's a role of ROLFE, reflective model.
Some people also use what, why, how. Very similar.
Okay, let's wrap up this discussion. I would say there's one other thing that we want to make sure that we're really clear about, and that is that contact. Who are they? Are they a distributor? Are they a user, an end user? Are they a referrer? Are they a vendor? It matters, and it matters a lot. So if you cannot differentiate those things in your CRM later, you're going to have huge problems. Okay, so let's wrap up this discussion about what do you want to think about as you're setting up, and we're going to go into our favorite topic, which is mistakes people make. So we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks everybody for joining us.
And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Hyman, your captain here at the Sales SOS podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.